Romans 4 verses 7 to 12, NIV, states, 7 Blessed are those whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. 8 Blessed is the one whose sin the Lord will never count against them. 9 Is this blessedness only for the circumcised, or also for the uncircumcised? We have been saying that Abraham's faith was credited to him as righteousness. 10 Under what circumstances was it credited? Was it after he was circumcised, or before? It was not after, but before. 11 And he received circumcision as a sign, a seal of the righteousness that he had by faith while he was still uncircumcised. So then, he is the father of all who believe but have not been circumcised, in order to show that righteousness is counted to them as well. 12 And he is then also the father of the circumcised who are not merely circumcised but who also follow in the footsteps of the faith that our father Abraham had before he was circumcised. Exposition of Romans 4 verses 7 to 12. Forgiveness and blessedness, verses 7 to 8. These verses quote Psalm 32, emphasizing the blessedness of those whose sins are forgiven. The Apostle Paul highlights the joy and relief that comes with the forgiveness of sins. It's a state of blessedness not because of human merit but because of God's gracious act of not counting sins against those who believe. Faith, not circumcision, as the basis of righteousness. Verses 9 to 10. Paul raises a critical question about the scope of this blessedness. He asks whether it is limited to the Jews, the circumcised, or available to Gentiles, the uncircumcised, as well. By referring to Abraham, Paul shows that righteousness was credited to Abraham because of his faith, not because of his circumcision. This was a radical statement in a context where circumcision was highly valued as a sign of belonging to God's chosen people. Circumcision as a sign, not a cause. v. 11. Paul explains that circumcision was a sign and seal of the righteousness that Abraham had already received through faith before he was circumcised. This means that the physical act of circumcision was not the cause of righteousness, rather, it was an outward symbol of the righteousness he had by faith. This also establishes that Gentiles, who are not circumcised, can be counted as righteous if they have faith like Abraham's. Abraham, the father of all who believe. v. 12. Finally, Paul states that Abraham is the father of all who believe, both Jews and Gentiles. This includes those who are circumcised but also have the same kind of faith that Abraham exhibited before his circumcision. This verse ties together the whole argument by showing that the true descendants of Abraham are those who share his faith, not just his physical mark of circumcision. Paul's argument in these verses is foundational to the Christian understanding of faith and righteousness. He makes it clear that righteousness before God is not based on external rituals or adherence to the law but on faith in God, as exemplified by Abraham. This teaching is central to the Christian doctrine of justification by faith alone.